Hello and welcome to the Hawkview Collector instruction video series. In this series, we will go over each individual major feature of Hawkview Collector and explain how it works and how you can access it and use it in your projects. So we'll start off by just giving a quick rundown of how you can navigate throughout Hawkview Collector. When you open it, it'll prompt you to open a workspace, and the workspace is essentially where you store your projects that you're working on. There's many different ways that you can approach your workspaces. Some people have one workspace per project, some have one workspace per client, some just have a new workspace for every little thing they do. There really is no golden standard. It's however you feel like organizing your data. So we'll go from the start here. This is Hawkview Collector without any workspace open. And you can go on the top here. Well, either when you open it, it'll prompt you to open a workspace, and if you cancel that window, you can go to the top here and create a new workspace, open a workspace. There's a few other options here, and there's a list of the recently used workspaces. So I'll go to new workspace to create a new one. And I'll create it on the desktop, and I will call it sample workspace. So you can name this after the project or after your client or after whatever you'd like. So now it's created a workspace for me with nothing in it. It's brand new. And you can see that it's opened the workspace work tree. And in this work tree, you'll have your sources, which are used to acquire data, your acquisitions, which are your essentially the containers that hold all of the data that you've collected from your sources and that you can view, the equations, which are a neat little tool that lets you take data as an input, manipulate it via a custom equation that you've entered, and output it as a tag in another acquisition. You can compare with live acquisitions you have running or other acquisitions you have stored from previous work. There's the models, which lets you take two tags from any two acquisitions. It doesn't have to be from the same acquisition, and lets you compare them in a bump response style so that you can determine any tuning parameters required for the correlation between these two tags. Any tuning parameters as well can be determined using the lambda tuning method that's built into Hawkview, and those will be stored in the same node with the models. There's also the views section, which is kind of the bread and butter of Hawkview in the sense that everything that you do is contained in a view. So the acquisitions are collecting data, but to view them, you open a view and you can see the trends and manipulate them freely, independently of one another, and also independently of their acquisition, in the sense that you can combine various acquisitions together. You can view just one trend from one acquisition, one trend from a different acquisition. You don't have to keep everything together. They're compartmentalized in views. So that's the workspace. Let's actually go here and open another workspace that I already had open here, demo workspace. And you can see that I have some sources that are offline in my work tree, and I can reconnect these if I want to, or create a new acquisition, or disconnect and remove them if I don't want to see them again. I have an acquisition here which I can double click on to open, and this opens a view with the acquisition inside it. And I can manipulate this view and take a look at different points of interest and see, okay, well, maybe I want to look at this, maybe I don't much care about this trend here, so let's get rid of that. There's different things you can do with that. There's your equations, which are exactly the same as your acquisitions. It's just that they've been generated using an equation and tags from other acquisitions as their inputs. There is also the models, which I don't have any in this workspace. and there's your custom views. So that's how the workspace is organized. Uh, each consecutive video will look at a different aspect of this, and we'll get a more in-depth look at each component and how they work and how you can access them and how they interact with one another. You can save your workspace. It generally auto-saves whenever changes are made and saved. So if you modify a view and save the view, then your workspace will be saved. If you add an acquisition, it'll save to the workspace. If you delete an acquisition, it'll save the workspace. There's not a lot of things you can do in Hawkview where it doesn't automatically save the workspace. But just in case you ever feel like you might need to, the option's there. There's a workspace import and export option, which lets you import other workspaces into this one. So you can combine data and views and models. You can export portions of your workspace so that other people can import them to theirs, and you can have backups stored if you require it. And then, like I said, there's the other more recent workspaces that were opened. In the tools window, you have access to all sorts of features and tools that are included in Hawkview Collector, including a new equation module, the view creator, your database manager, so your channel or tag database manager, which is used for Hawkview system acquisitions. There's the equation database manager, which is used to manage your equations that you're using in the equation generator. And there's the controller database manager, which is used in the PID lambda tuning section. There's also the automatic restart feature. What this feature does is it will take your running acquisitions, and at scheduled intervals, it will restart the acquisitions and stop the old ones. And what that does is it prevents your acquisition data files from becoming too large. Let's say, for example, that you wanted to sample 16 tags on a Hawkview system at 1 kilohertz. Well, that tends to be, after a day, a lot of data. And if you have a month to do, you may find yourself with very, very large data files that are hard to manipulate, and it may be more interesting to view them day by day as opposed to all together, as well as if there's a certain day that you are interested in, it might be easier to just take that one day, export it from your system, from your workspace, and view it in a separate workspace, or give it to a colleague who's working on it. So you can do this, and you can restart daily, weekly, monthly, however you prefer, whatever suits your needs, and that prevents your files from becoming too large. Just gonna turn it off. You also have the preferences menu, which is just general system preferences. The memory size that you're allocating to the trend visualizer in Hawkview. So if you don't have a lot of memory, RAM space to spare, you can drop this down to 2 gigs. The minimum is 128 megs. The maximum is 8,192 or 8 gigs. So I'll just leave this at 4,000. And then there's some options to limit the number of points displayed when you open a trend. So when you open a file, or when you do your best zoom. So it kind of uses your maximum memory cache you're allocating when you do these actions. There's your language. Currently, Hawkview Collector is available in English or in French. If you would like to change a language, you must select a language and then restart the application in order for the language change to take effect. There are your default trend colors. So when you open a new viewer from an acquisition or equation, it will generate a new view that was not previously saved, and it will allocate these colors to the trends in order that they're displayed here. So the first trend will have this color, the second trend, the second color, and so on. Your views, however, will save the colors assigned to them. So if you want to change the color of your trend in the viewer and then save it, when you open that viewer, when you open that saved view, you'll have the same color. So this is just for the default colors. And lastly, we have the integration tab, which is for the Hawkview's integration capability with external software, which we'll get into in more detail in a future video. The last thing I'm going to show here is the help menu. In the help menu, you have your license information, which shows all of the modules you have included in your version of Hawkview Collector. So the current license is a development license for Hawkview, so it's never going to expire. But you have all the features here. So this includes the OPC license, model and tuning license, the advanced equations license, and the live equations license, and all the details associated, including serial number, the issue number, client, etc. You have the about, which just opens up the little splash screen to show you the version of Hawkview Collector. And you have, last but not least, the most important part is the help menu, which opens up the user manual. This is the Hawkview Collector instruction manual, and I strongly suggest before getting too much involved in with Hawkview Collector that you pass over, at the very least, you go over the table of contents and pick out the aspects that are of interest to you that you need in Hawkview Collector, and you give them a once over prior to going through these videos and immersing yourself in Hawkview Collector, because it will give you a good idea of what to expect and how the software should behave. That is pretty much it for the first look at Hawkview Collector and how you can navigate through it. We will look in more detail on how to start acquisitions, generate equations, create your views, your models, etc. Do your importation and exportation in each upcoming video. So I hope this is very helpful, and I hope that you continue watching these to get a better idea of how Hawkview Collector functions. Thank you for watching.